There was always something about the way the light hit her kitchen window around 6:30, like it waited for her. I'd see it from my apartment across the courtyard. Same time, most evenings. She'd step into the glow like a film cue, her hair loose, glass in hand, staring at nothing. I used to think she was posing. She wasn't. She just had that kind of stillness. The first time she spoke to me, it wasn't anything poetic. I was dragging a box of old books up the stairs, and she said, "You'll throw your back out trying to be impressive." No smile. Just a raised brow and the faint smell of vanilla. I didn't say much back. Just held her gaze a little longer than I meant to. Her name was Alina. And somehow it sounded like a secret. She was older, mid-40s maybe. Hard to say. Her face carried no apologies. The kind of beautiful that had learned not to explain itself anymore. Everything about her felt curated but not fake, soft blouses, quiet jewelry, perfect posture that seemed unintentional. Her apartment was one floor up, diagonally across from mine. She didn't talk to anyone else in the building. At least I never saw her try. But I'd hear music sometimes. Old records. The kind that crackle before they begin. Over the next few weeks, there were small things, tiny stitches in an invisible thread. She started leaving her door half open when checking the mail. She'd water the small dead plant near my door and shrug when I asked. Once, she knocked just to return a misdelivered letter, though it wasn't addressed to me. We never talked long. But I'd replay everything. The way her fingers grazed mine handing me that letter. The way she noticed if I'd shaved or not. The way she said my name, slow, like she was tasting it first. And I started waiting for her light. One evening, maybe 2 months after that first stairwell comment, I saw her standing outside my door. No knock. Just standing. Holding her own wrist with the other hand like she was keeping it from reaching forward. Her hair was pulled up this time. Eyes darker. No makeup, I think. I opened the door before she could change her mind. "I shouldn't be here," she said quietly. But she didn't leave. I stepped aside. She didn't walk in. Just looked past me, into the stillness of my apartment. My books stacked unevenly, my record player humming low. She nodded once, like something made sense. "I made tea," I said, barely above a whisper. "It's probably cold now." She smiled a little. It didn't touch her eyes. "I don't drink tea," she said. Silence stretched long between us, not uncomfortable, not warm either. Just waited. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, trying not to stare too much. Trying not to ask all the things crowding my throat. Her eyes flicked down to my mouth, then back up. She opened her mouth like she might speak. Then closed it again. And then she said it. "He's gone. I'm not asking for permission anymore." I didn't know who he was. But I knew what she meant. Before I could respond, she turned slightly, not away, but not closer either. The air between us changed. So I said the first thing that came to mind. The only thing that felt honest. "You don't have to explain anything." She didn't move. Not for a long moment. And then, she stepped over the threshold. But didn't close the door. She didn't sit. Just walked slowly into the room like she'd been here before in some other life. Her fingers skimmed the spines of books. Picked up a photo I hadn't meant to leave out. Me and my brother years ago. Before things cracked. "Your eyes are the same," she murmured, placing it back with a kind of reverence that made me feel younger and older at the same time. I nodded, unsure what to say. She kept moving, pausing near the window where the city lived quietly below. Her reflection in the glass looked softer than the woman standing in front of it. Like maybe she used to be softer once. "How long were you married?" I asked, voice low. She didn't flinch, but she didn't answer right away either. "Too long." "Not long enough," she said. "Depends which part you're asking about, the paperwork or the silence." I didn't push. She turned finally. Looked at me with something stripped down. Like her usual polish had slipped, and she wasn't in a rush to fix it. You know this is? She started, then stopped. Yeah, I said. I know. Age. Timing. Neighbors. Whatever label we tried to throw on it, it didn't explain the gravity in the room. She sat then, finally. Crossed one leg over the other, arms folded tight like she was holding herself together. I brought her tea anyway, cold or not. She took it. Sipped once, made a face. You lied, she said. You came in, I said. That made her laugh, not loud, but real. A crack in the surface. I wanted more of that. 23, right? She asked, not looking at me. I hesitated. Yeah. She nodded slowly. You feel older. I didn't know how to answer that. So I said nothing. She looked around. You live like someone who doesn't expect company. That obvious? She shrugged. It's honest. A beat passed. 2. Then, like a slip of a thought escaping her mouth. He hated how quiet I could be. Said it felt like punishment. I swallowed. I don't mind quiet. She looked at me then, and something in her expression shifted. Like she'd heard something I didn't mean to say out loud. When she stood to leave, she reached for the scarf she'd taken off earlier. Our hands brushed. Neither of us pulled away immediately. The touch wasn't accidental, but it wasn't declared either. Just there. She didn't meet my eyes. At the door, she paused. I'm not good at this anymore, she said. What's this? I asked. She opened the door but didn't walk through it yet. Letting someone see the parts I've kept safe. I stood there, hands half curled at my sides, wanting to say something that wouldn't ruin it. Instead, I said nothing. And she left, slowly. But she left the scarf behind. It started with the scarf. She came back for it 2 nights later. Knocked once, then opened the door before I could reach it. Forgot this, she said, lifting it like a white flag. But she didn't sound apologetic. I was making dinner. Something lazy and too much, pasta for 3 people, maybe 4. I offered a plate without thinking. She hesitated, but stepped in. Again. She stayed. We sat across from each other at my tiny table, legs brushing occasionally, either of us pulling away. Conversation drifted, nothing deep, nothing heavy. The way people talk when they're pretending not to notice the undercurrent. She asked about my writing. I said I wasn't sure I was still a writer. She asked why. Stopped believing anyone wanted to hear what I had to say, I said. She looked at me like I was wrong. Like I'd just said something unkind about someone she cared about. You're easier to listen to than most people I've known, she said, so simply I forgot to respond. Later, she helped me wash the dishes. Our hands moved too close in the sink. Warm water, bare arms, her shoulder brushing mine as she reached for a plate. Neither of us moved back. At one point I turned, and we were just facing each other. Too close. Not touching, but everything in me was screaming that we almost were. Her breath caught. Mine followed. I saw her look at my mouth, for a second too long. I leaned in, maybe without realizing it. Maybe I did. She didn't move. Not forward. Not back. And then her phone buzzed on the table behind us. We both froze. She stepped away first. Didn't check it right away, just stared at it like it had said something out loud. It's him, she said finally, voice smaller than I'd ever heard. My chest tightened. She didn't answer. Just let the screen go dark again. I'm sorry, she said, not looking at me. I shouldn't be here. I wanted to say she should. That I wanted her here. That every time she left it felt like someone had turned the lights down in the world. But I didn't. Instead, I said, It's okay. I get it. She nodded. Tight. Like she was holding herself together by the corners. As she reached for her scarf, our fingers touched again. She froze. Eyes closed. I don't want to hurt anyone, she whispered. I know, I said. And I meant it. She stepped back, looked at me one last time, and left. This time, she took the scarf with her. But I could still smell her on my shirt sleeve. I stood there for a long time after the door closed, palms pressed to the counter, like I needed something solid to hold me up. I knew I shouldn't be feeling this, but I was. I hadn't seen her in 6 days. Not a glimpse through the window. Not the sound of her heels in the hallway. Her light didn't come on at 6:30. Her blinds stayed closed. I told myself it was good. Necessary. It wasn't. By the 7th day, I was on edge, restless, checking the peephole like a teenager waiting for something that wasn't coming. Then, just past midnight, she knocked. 3 quiet taps. Like she wasn't sure if she meant them. I opened the door. She looked exhausted, no makeup, hoodie too big on her, sleeves pulled over her hands. Like she'd walked straight out of sleep and into doubt. I couldn't sleep, she said. Me either. She stepped in without waiting this time. Like the silence had worn her down. We didn't talk for a while. Just sat on opposite ends of the couch, knees pulled up, both of us staring at nothing. Then she said, "He asked if I was seeing someone?" I didn't move. "What did you say?" She laughed, a brittle small sound. I said no. That landed harder than I expected. She noticed. "I didn't lie," she added. "Not really. Nothing's happened." I looked at her, but she wouldn't look back. "So why do I feel like I did something wrong?" she whispered. I didn't have an answer. My chest ached. "You didn't," I said anyway. She finally turned to me. Her eyes were red but dry. Like the crying had already happened. "This is a mistake," she said. "Whatever this is." I sat forward, elbows on my knees, trying to breathe around something sharp. "Then why are you here?" She blinked. "I don't know." That silence again, the kind that says more than any argument could. I stood up, walked to the kitchen just to move, just to keep from shaking. "You can't keep doing this," I said, not meaning to say it out loud. "Showing up when it's convenient. Leaving when it gets real." Her voice rose, not loud, just full. "And what do you want from me? You want me to ruin my life for this? For a few late nights and unfinished sentences?" I turned. "This isn't just late nights, and you know it." Her lip trembled, and she bit it hard. "I'm scared," she said. "I don't trust myself with you." I stepped toward her. Slowly. Like the space between us had grown dangerous. "Then don't leave." She didn't move. Didn't breathe. "Don't go," I whispered. Her eyes searched mine, desperate, angry, longing, all of it colliding at once. And then, without thinking, without permission, I reached up and touched her face. She flinched, but didn't pull away. "I shouldn't," she breathed. But she was leaning in. So was I. And right before our lips met, she said, "What if I can't stop?" Her lips were barely a breath away when she pulled back. Not suddenly, slowly, like a wave retreating. Like she wished she hadn't started at all. Her hand stayed on my cheek a moment longer. Then dropped. She stepped away and wrapped her arms around herself, hoodie sleeves tugged down to her knuckles. "I can't," she said. I stood there, pulse racing, heart somewhere between my throat and the floor. "You don't want to?" She looked at me then, and it hurt. Because she did. She absolutely did. "It's not that," she said. "It's never been that." The quiet swallowed us whole. She sat on the edge of the couch, spine straight, like she was preparing for something awful. Her eyes were fixed on the wall behind me. "He's not gone," she said finally. "Not really." I froze. I said he was, because I wanted it to be true. Because I was angry and tired of waiting to feel like myself again. She exhaled hard. "But he's still around. Still calling. Still there." My stomach tightened. "You're still with him?" Her voice was almost inaudible. "I don't know what I am," The silence that followed was longer than it needed to be. But I couldn't fill it. I didn't know how. And you? She asked. You're not exactly free either, are you? I looked up, confused. What do you mean? She gave a faint, knowing smile. You're leaving. I overheard your call last week. You didn't say anything. I blinked. It's just a fellowship, 3 months. I didn't think that I mattered enough to tell? She cut in gently, no venom in her tone. Just resignation. My words tangled. I didn't want to complicate things. Well, she said softly, we did that anyway. She stood, brushed her hands on her jeans, and looked around the room like she might never see it again. Her eyes lingered on the books, the half-washed dishes in the sink. Me. I moved toward her, slowly. So what now? She gave a small laugh, but it cracked at the edges. I came here because I didn't want to feel invisible anymore. You made me feel like I still existed. That I was still wanted. You are, I said. She closed her eyes. And that's exactly why I need to go. Her hand hovered near the doorknob. I wanted to say something, anything to make her stay. But my throat was thick with everything unspoken. She opened the door. And for a second, I thought she might turn around. Say let's figure this out. Say don't leave. But she didn't. She walked out. Left me in a room that suddenly felt colder, smaller. And I didn't know if I should follow, or let her be the one to choose me first. She came back the next morning. That surprised me. The knock was softer this time, like she wasn't sure if I'd answer. I did. She stood there, the same hoodie, but her eyes different, clearer, maybe a little more tired. I couldn't sleep again, she said, stepping inside without waiting. I closed the door behind her, and the weight of what hung between us felt heavier than ever. She sat down across from me, fingers tangled in her lap. I need to be honest, she said. I want you. The words hit me like a sudden draft, cold and undeniable. But, she added quickly, I don't know how this can work. Her eyes searched mine, raw and unguarded. I'm not free, she whispered. And I don't know if I ever will be. I swallowed hard, feeling the distance between us more sharply than the room's walls. I want you too, I said, voice barely steady. More than I should. Her lip trembled. And that scares me. We sat in silence, the quiet thick with all the things either of us said before. I don't want to hurt anyone, not him, not you, she confessed, voice breaking. But I'm tired of pretending. I reached out, hesitating just a moment before my hand brushed hers. A small, fragile bridge. She didn't pull away. I'm scared of what this means, I admitted. But I can't stop thinking about you. Her eyes filled, but she smiled, a shaky, hopeful curve. Maybe it's not about knowing how, she said. Maybe it's about choosing to try, even if we don't have the answers. I nodded slowly, heart pounding. She squeezed my hand, and for a moment, everything felt possible, messy, complicated, but real. Then she stood, lingering near the door. I'm not asking you to wait, she said softly. But maybe stay tonight. The invitation hung between us, tender and uncertain. I looked at her, at the woman who had changed everything without a word, and I knew this was the moment where nothing was certain, but everything was worth the risk. So I stepped forward. And the door stayed open. Morning light spilled soft and uneven through the curtains. The apartment felt warmer, quieter in a way that didn't press on the chest. She was sitting at the kitchen table, a mug of coffee between her hands, steam rising like a fragile promise. I watched her, still learning how to read this new version of her, the one who stayed. Her eyes met mine and held, not asking, just offering. We didn't say much. No need. The silence was full of everything we'd stumbled through, regrets, fears, broken promises. She reached out, fingers brushing mine across the table. That small touch carried all the things we hadn't yet said aloud. I squeezed gently. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, I said. Neither do I, she whispered. But maybe that's okay. She nodded, eyes bright with something like hope. We sat together like that for a long time, no plans, no rush, just two people learning to exist side by side. Later, she packed a small bag, slow and deliberate. Ready? I asked. She smiled. As I'll ever be. We stepped into the hallway, the weight of the past still there but somehow lighter. As the door closed behind us, I felt the quiet hum of a future we dared to reach for. And I wondered,